So, Leon, could you just give me like an override, a run of what you're about and what you do?
Sure. Name reality, it's a two-part system. The first part shows how from birth your given documented names create a blueprint, an energy blueprint that influence your personality, your character, your virtues, vices, and your mental and physical health, for better or for worse. The second part of this system shows how individual letters from each of your names rotate in a specific sequence every year of your life. And we can actually produce a chart that shows which letters are active in any given year of your life. And again, it's the combination of these letters which show the influences that create events in your life and how you go about your life and how you deal with these events and when they come in and when they go out. It's quite an incredible system. Briefly, picture a piano. Take one finger. You can touch any key on a piano and for the most it'll sound good. Some sound a little better than others, but any one finger on a piano sounds pretty good. Now when you take 2 or 3 fingers, or especially 2 hands, and you have to press several keys at the same time, it's very important you press the right combination of keys. If you don't, you can be a little bit out of tune. Or if you get them completely wrong, you can actually make quite a horrible noise. Well, your names apply a similar action.
Right. Very interesting. Now I know you've written a book, and we'll get to that later on. Yeah. But is there a difference between here, numerology, and what you're saying with the name analysis and what you do?
Big difference. There are different types of numerology. The 2 most popular are the Western version, and then there's the older Chaldean version. There's other little offshoots as well. Numerology is very good, very good. It provides a lot of great information. However, this system, when you start to discover it, you'll actually see that it is very different. It goes down avenues and paths that's not touched with numerology. The only similarity is that we do use numbers for calculations. So when you perhaps look at a page that I have in the book that shows how we use numbers referring to letters of the alphabet, you go, oh, well, this is numerology. That's basically where it ends. The great thing about this system that sets it apart from anything else is it's the only system that actually shows certain aspects of your life, for example, mental and physical health situations and how you actually deal with it. And it's the only system which you can actually use to completely analyze a name to the extent that you can actually change or modify a name by altering the spelling, or, for example, removing your middle name that you perhaps don't use very frequently and substituting it with something else. And of course, if you're having a child, if you're having a baby, you can use this system to actually create a name with specific personality traits and create specific positive events throughout the life of that person using this system.
So are you saying that if you think before you act, you can determine the act?
Well, one of the benefits of this system, I've analysed hundreds, thousands of people's names over the years, and I can tell you that not everybody has to change their name, first of all. No. For a lot of people, just having this information, having this knowledge, if you start to go through the first part of the system, looking at your personalities, and you highlight different pages, going, sarcastic, yeah, I can be a bit sarcastic. Impulsive, yeah, sometimes I am a little bit impulsive. You highlight all these areas. You can see your strengths and you can also see your weaknesses. When you know your strengths, you can use them to your advantage. For example, if the opportunity comes along for a promotion at work or a new job opportunity, and you're scratching your head thinking, I don't really know if I could really tackle this, but then if you think, it says in my name for career prospects that I'm very, very good with communications, working with people, etc., etc. You can go, but you know what? It says in my names I can do this. I'm going to do it. That's when the laws of attraction come in.
Yeah, I do understand it, yeah.
Think positive, speak positive, but most important, visualize positive, the power of intention. So
Absolutely.
when you have this information, you can actually use it to your advantage. And if you feel some of the negatives coming on, whether it's just for a few seconds or for a couple of days, you can say, that's in my names again. You know what? I'm just going to push that to one side. And I'm just going to leave it behind, and I'm going to focus on all the good aspects. The great thing about the events chart that I can create for someone, I actually create a 99-year events chart. So it shows all the influences that are going on every year of your life. You can use this like a long-range weather forecast. If you see that good times are coming, and it could be good for money, for career, for love, happiness, health, then just like if you know the sun's going to shine, you think, well, let me get my sunglasses, I'll get a beach towel, put on a pair of shorts, and I'll probably go to the beach for the weekend. On the other hand, if you see that there's a good chance of rain tomorrow, what do? You don't stay at home and hibernate. No, you've got to get on with your life. But because you know that it might rain, you take a raincoat, you take an umbrella, and if it does rain, you're prepared. Guess what? Pop up the umbrella, you don't get wet. Knowledge is key.
I agree. The people that are listening here, you're going to get people who say, that's right, that's very true. And if I was to study what you are telling me and take it on board myself, I would be a bit controlled by what I'm reading and what I'm thinking to govern the thoughts of my actions in my life. How would you react to somebody who said that to you?
I would say that really everybody needs to keep an open mind, an open view. There's so much on this planet that we still don't understand, whether you want to look at a religious level, a spiritual level, if you want to look at a scientific level, there's a lot of stuff that we don't know. And if you keep an open view, an open mind, and if you're willing to take a look at anything, take a look. Some people will take a look at this book and they'll say, names influence your life? No. That's fine. That's their prerogative. We all come here for choice. Coming here to this beautiful planet is all about choice. And some people will pick up the book and go, oh, that's interesting. And of course, like you said before, very often people say, oh, I wonder if this is something to do with numerology. And then they go, oh, it's not. This is something different. Well, I've looked at numerology, and that was very good. I actually found some good information from that. Let's see what this has to offer.
I do agree.
So it's about being open.
Yeah. And we had a little talk about being open there just before we started.
Yeah.
And I don't really want to go down that track just at the moment. So how is the stature and how does this work?
How does it work? Okay, basically there are 64 personalities that separate the human race. 64 you might recognize as a powerful mathematical number. It's used in the hexagrams of the I Ching. There are 64 codons that make up your DNA. There's 64 squares on a chessboard. It's a very powerful number. Each of your names, using the calculations, each of your names is two of those personalities. The first one is what I call primary, which is the more dominant, and the second one I call undertone, where you'll pick up some underlying characteristics from that personality. So each name that you have is the combination of two personalities. Now, some people will have a middle name, so that's two more personalities. Obviously, we all have a surname, a family name that comes from our father, so that's your third name. And in this system, we also include the mother's maiden name. Now, the mother's maiden name is actually included and documented on your birth certificate. And when you think about it logically, you come from the energy of two people. So we also include the mother's maiden name within the system. And then we include the number of the day that you were born. So if you have a middle name then you have 9 different personalities that, when they're mixed together, make up you. And obviously, I sent you your personality.
You did.
You were quite amazed at the accuracy.
And so was my wife, quite amazingly. And I keep saying she's very good to have me, but there you go. Yeah, but joking aside, I was very interested to start with.
Yeah.
There are people that are going to go, wow, because of the situation. They've never been down these kind of roads, I understand this.
Yeah.
And there's other ones that are going to say, well, I've had my maybe a numerology chart done by somebody. I don't know if I really want this, but I have to say that I have done numerology myself, and I find it fascinating because it's coming at a name analysis from a different aspect altogether.
Well, in some ways, everything on this planet is a mathematical equation. So many factors of life can be actually reflected on a numerical system. So, and of course, this system is an ancient system. This is not some new hokey pokey theory that someone just suddenly popped up with.
No,
This is
that's right.
actually documented. Would you like me to touch on the history of
Yeah,
where this
please.
comes
Yeah,
from?
just I was going to ask you that next anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
But I mean, it's just I'm more like the history and what brought you into it.
Sure, okay. Well, the history, we can go back several thousand years. This is documented in many places. The system was originally used by the elite families of Egypt, the Hebrew countries, in the Middle East. It was for the most kept a secret, and when you get to fully understand how accurate this system is, you'll understand why it's been kept under wraps. So it's documented several thousand years ago, starting in Egypt. They actually found an ancient papyrus in Egypt, and it's now in the Louvre Library in Paris. And a translation of that was actually done by a guy called W. Marshall Adams just over 100 years ago. So we have some documentation there that shows the roots and the basics of this. If we move a little bit closer towards modern times, say about 3,000 years ago, it's also documented in China. There's a book called The Way of Life. And once again, translations have been done and updated into the modern language that we have here today, which is based on the Roman alphabet. If you go to 1929, there were 2 sisters, Violeta and Elverita Park Boyle. They lived in the Chicago area of the United States, and they devoted their entire lives to studying names, basing it on the Chinese secret science of vibration. Of course, everything on the planet is energy and vibration. And they got all this documentation together, including the ancient scrolls from Egypt, which when they translated that, they actually titled it The Book of the Master of the Secret House. Quite a strange title, but that's how it was actually named. So they took all this information that's been documented over thousands of years, and they put everything together. This is actually a reprint. I do have the original copy from 1929. Fundamental Principles of the Yi King, Tao, the Kabbalahs of Egypt, and the Hebrew.
Please just hold that up to the camera so the listener can see that.
This is the most recent publication, which was in 1929. So I use this as the basis to come up with Name Reality. If you actually go through this book, you'll actually see that there's an awful lot of Chinese proverbs there that still need to be translated, and it is in a very old form of English, so it can be a little bit difficult to grasp some of the details.
Can you still get copies of that?
This is a reprint, and the reprints are available. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And if anybody wants to get a copy of this, I strongly recommend, if they doubt my translations for 1 minute, look at this, and you'll see how everything all connects. I have actually been able to take this a stage further. If we go back to 2010, I met a guy in England called Lawrence Pegg. or Lawrence Page, depending how you want to pronounce his last name. Unfortunately, Lawrence died last year. You could say he was my mentor. He was the man who got me into this. And that's where we touch on how I got there.
Nicely done.
My life has been a complete roller coaster. Ups and downs, nothing too tragic. I can't complain about my life, but very, very unpredictable, especially when it came to business. I could have some years where I was very successful, everything went extremely well for me, and then all of a sudden, for no apparent reason, business would just dive. And even friends or people in similar business would say, I don't understand what's going on. You do a great job, you take care of the customers, and now all of a sudden, you're not getting customers. And I'd say, exactly. People are just not coming through the door. I can't understand it. And then the flip side, when we've gone through recessions, like for example, in the late 1980s, there was the crash, I was riding high. And other people couldn't understand, why is he getting all the business? Why is he doing so well and we're struggling? It was because of my names. Now, I went through a huge spiritual growth about 20 years ago, and that helped me to get grounded and feel more in touch with myself and my surroundings. It worked very, very well for me. But my life still followed this roller coaster pattern, and I couldn't quite understand it. And it was my daughter who actually said, there's this guy called Lawrence Page, and he was in the Sunday Telegraph. This was several years ago, and he changed the name for an aspiring model called Laura Hollins, and he changed her name to Agnes Dean. And within 12 months, she didn't change the modeling agency, she didn't change her hairstyle, her look, her appearance, didn't change anything. Her career skyrocketed. She became the face of Armani and Burberry, and all of a sudden she was flying high. Now, when she was called Laura Hollins, actually at her cycle in her names at that time, she was in the letter U from Laura, and U indicates loss. It can last for 3 years in the cycle, and then of course when we get through the first cycle of your name, Laura, it then restarts again and restarts again, so it keeps cycling on and on. The U signifies loss. Now, loss can be emotional, it can be financial, it can be just loss of interest, but generally it's a little bit on the negative side. Of course, it depends upon the other letters that are in your chart within the same year, but it's generally not good. And at the time, when she was trying to get ahead and be a model, she was in the letter U. So when she changed her names, and she had positive letters in her chart with this new vitality, new energy, it changed her life. So myself, I met with Lawrence, and of course, first of all, he analysed my names, and I was like, wow, this is pretty amazing. At first, I wasn't overwhelmed with the personality side of it, but I think that was because I was a bit in denial.
What do you mean by you weren't overwhelmed by the personality?
At that time, I think I still had a bit of an ego issue, an ego problem, which of course we're not always aware of. So initially, at first, it was personalities. Well, yeah, I can see stuff there, but I was more interested in my events chart because I had the letter U from my name Paul, which is my birth name, and I also had a letter U in my family surname as well, and they kept coming into the cycle together, so I had 2 U's for loss, and they also coincided, for example, on one occasion with the letter O, which is for money and stability. So extreme loss, because 2 U's, extreme loss of money and stability, which is why my life was just going like this. And of course, Paul is quite a short name using this system. It cycles every 14 years. So the U, which lasts for 3 years, so for 3 out of every 14 years, I would go into a loss period. So meeting with Lawrence was very educational, and I said, I need to know more about this. And he had a package that I got from him, which was a tutorial type package. And so I started to study, and even though I wasn't actually living in England at that point, I was in the Southwest Caribbean, where I live now. I was having calls back and forth and he was guiding me through the process. And I found it very, very quickly, I thought there was something missing. And that's when I managed to get a copy of this book. I did some research and I found that the system that Lawrence was using, he was taking a little bit of a shortcut because it is a very, very long process. I mean, as you saw from the information I sent you, pages and pages of information, which of course not everybody has the time to go through all of that. So that's why if somebody wants a quick consultation, I'll give them a quick overview, which we can very often do by Skype because of my location, or by telephone. But for most people, they want the full analysis where I send you all the documentation. So when I've been through this book, I thought people have got to know about this. This is something very, very powerful. So I kept studying the book and I kept getting more and more deeper into it, analysing more people's names. And also, what I didn't mention, one of the main reasons for my changing my names, yes, I did go to the extremes. I changed all of my names, totally, completely. You could say partly as an experiment. I was very, very curious to see just how powerful it would be. I had a problem with alcohol all of my life. I started drinking when I was 15 years old. And I had these periods again, ups and downs, roller coaster. I would get off the alcohol, but I'd always go back to it. I was never a constant drinker. There's different types of alcoholism. There's some people that hide a little bottle away somewhere and they're drinking all the time, every day, just little amounts. Other people are binge drinkers, and I was a binge drinker. 2 or 3 times a week, I would get toasted. Once I started having a couple of drinks, I couldn't stop. I wanted to keep drinking more and more and more. And I didn't like this. There were things about my personality that I did like, and some things that I didn't like. I generally liked myself, mostly, but I didn't like the way I would act sometimes. And when I studied my actual birth names, I found everything all just fitted together. Yeah, this is why I have issues here and issues there. I also had a very extrovert name on one side and a very introvert name on the other side. So I would flip-flop backwards and forwards. I'd be totally outrageous one minute, and then the next minute I wanted to just be peaceful and quiet, almost like a bipolar condition. And in fact, when you get into this, you'll see that your names, I'm not saying they create bipolar conditions or alcoholic conditions. What for sure is a fact, a true documented fact, your names can aggravate these situations. So if you have a problem with alcohol or drugs, depending upon the balance of your names, some people can get off, they can wean off, because their names are reasonably balanced and they don't have any high amounts of physical nervous energy or mental nervous energy battling all the time. For example, with people like Amy Winehouse, bless her, beautiful girl, very, very sad. She really couldn't get off alcohol and drugs. And I actually talk about her in the book. If you actually look through the names, you'll see she has these conflicts going on, this out of balance synchronization going on. And it makes it very, very difficult to get away from certain things in your life. Whereas Russell Brand, who is a self-confessed alcoholic, drug user, yes, that's me, he got off drugs and alcohol very, very quickly. His names are quite balanced. He has certain names which are all about peace and happiness and love and tranquility, smart, active brain, but he hasn't got these excessive loads of high mental activity or high physical activity, which if you don't use up that energy in the right way, it can cause a problem.
People will listen to what you've just said, the two analogies, and say, well, if you have underlying issues that goes back, and you don't address them, you have those issues there, and sometimes it becomes an escapism with yourself to get out of this.
Yes.
Now, other people address those things and maybe pigeonhole certain things to get them to a point whereby they can see the positives and the negatives within those.
Yeah.
At what point do you think that they turn around and look at it and say, well, this is my name analysis that is doing this for me? Or is it a choice that I've made to think that I'm not doing this anymore, I'm moving on?
Well, if I can start from the beginning, we all choose our names. When you're actually in the womb, you do actually get in touch with your mother and also very often with your father. You do communicate from inside the womb saying, hey, I'd like to be called this, I'd like to be called that.
Why do we communicate inside the womb? How do we do that? And what sphere do we do it? What energy do we communicate on?
Well, there's lots of people who are very intuitive, have psychic ability. There's people who talk to angels. It's all about frequency. For example, we're sitting here right now having this conversation, and you can go to the television and you can turn on the television and you've got BBC One, for example, playing. You can see it, you can hear it. Well, also in this very same room, BBC Two is playing at the same time. But you can't see it, you can't hear it, unless you turn the dial to another frequency. And then you can.
I know what you're saying.
Well, we all actually do have an intuitive psychic ability. Some of us are not aware of it, some of us are not quite ready for it, some of us are not really too bothered about it, but we all have it. And before you actually totally bond with the physical body, you do have a huge amount of powers that we don't always have when we're on this physical plane, on this planet Earth, having a physical life. So whilst you're still a baby, you do have that ability to communicate with your mother and with your father. And very often it'll be, well, call me Amy. So the mother's saying, you know, I like the name Amy. It just came to me. I just like the name Amy. I feel good about it. But of course, she doesn't always know if it should be spelled A-M-Y or A-M-I-E. And of course, using this system, that can make quite a considerable difference. However, whatever actually happens, even if she spells your name the way you weren't really hoping and praying for, then it is meant to be, because everything has already happened on this planet. We're just fulfilling our part within a movie.
I do agree.
So if the spelling was not to what you really wanted, it was part of your destiny, part of your path. However, as you go on through your life, you come into certain things. There's people who are watching this right now thinking, well, that's a coincidence. I'm watching this and I was actually just interested in numerology or something about names the other day, or something sparked some interest somewhere.
Absolutely, and that's
so
what it's all
It's
about.
all part of your steps in your life. So even though perhaps you think there was an accident, that your name was spelt wrong, or somehow the middle name, which you perhaps never liked, why did they even give me that middle name? It was part of your destiny. But now that you have this information in front of you, you also have the ability to make a change. Like I said, with a lot of people, well, just to give you some rough numbers, I would say certainly 1 out of 10 people whose names I analyse, I say, you do not need to change your names in any shape or form whatsoever. You don't need to. You've got a nice balance of personalities, and now that you've seen the information, you can use your strengths, and if there's a few little weaknesses, but you can take control of those. And your events chart is full of positive letters, which clears a pathway for you. It gives you a smooth road. When you've got a smooth road, you can travel at any speed you want to travel at, any speed, slow, medium, fast, and there's no obstacles to slow you down or stop you. And this is what your names are basically all about. If you have a good balanced selection of names with positive letters, it sets you free. Now, changing your name to something that's positive is not necessarily going to be an instant fix. It's not the magic answer. Yes, it clears your path, but if you sit in this chair and if you don't want to move anywhere, you're not going to get anywhere. Yeah, but it sets you free. So if you've got some ambition and some drive, it clears that pathway and you can travel twice as fast and smoother. And you just start opening better doorways.
So you're saying that if you do change your name, you can benefit within your life?
If you, of course, use this system,
through the system,
yes, changing your name can change your life. And I'm not the only person. There's hundreds of people that Lawrence changed names for. The most famous one being the aspiring model Laura Hollands, who became Agnes Dean. I've changed names for lots of people. If you go on to Amazon.co.uk or more so Amazon.co, you'll see lots of reviews for the book that I've written, and there's people there whose names I've changed, and they're praising, well, not so much praising me, they're praising the system. And if you go on my Facebook page, Lyon Zonamyari, Facebook, you'll see lots of commendations there. Some are from some very notable people. The system, it's not a hokey pokey theory. It's a proven fact, and it's documented for thousands of years.
It certainly resonated with me.
Yeah.
And that's how we got in. Would you just hold your book up a bit and just explain just a little what is in the book and where they can get it from, where your listeners can get it from?
The book, it's available at all good online bookstores, which Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kobe, etc., etc. It's available as a paperback and also as an ebook. The book consists of about 200 pages, and it's a step-by-step instructional book that first shows you how to analyze your name or the name of somebody else, someone close to you, and it then also shows you how to make modifications to your name. If you're not happy with what you see, and you can relate that to what's going on in your life and think, well, I never really did like my middle name too much. You can come up with and you can create a new middle name, or sometimes just replace it with an initial. For example, the letter G. I have Lyon G. Paley Zonamyari. Day by day I go by Lyon or Lyon Zonamyari, but for signing documents and so forth I always put in the letter G. It's just the initial G, and because it's one letter it never ends in the cycle. G lasts for 7 years, but when it finishes after 7 years I start the cycle again with G. So G is in my chart every year of my life. G stands for gains in all areas of your life. It's a very positive letter. So sometimes just making a slight change is all you need to do to give yourself a whole fresh new start. As I was saying, with clients that I've had over the years, 1 out of 10, I tell them, you don't need to change your name at all. 4 out of 10 don't need to necessarily change their name. Their name's pretty good. Sure, there's a few little twists and turns here and there, but now you have the information, now you have the knowledge, you don't have to change your name. When you know the sun is going to shine, you take your sunglasses, you go to the beach. When you know it's going to rain, take an umbrella. Take an umbrella just in case. And if it does rain, you don't get wet.
That's good. And the name of the book is?
Name Reality. Name Reality.
Brilliant.
Unfortunately, I have to say that about half of the cases that I deal with, they really could do with a name change. But again, very often it's not having to do something drastic like I did, which was more of an experimentation than anything else. I needed to prove the system to myself. Sometimes just changing the way you spell a name. Amy, A-M-I-E or A-M-Y. Anne, with an E on the end or without. It does make a big difference.
Yeah, I can see that, yeah.
So,
now you're over here, you told us where you came from. How long are you over here for?
I'm going to be here till probably the end of July or maybe the first week of August. That's the initial plan. I don't have a fixed schedule, but I do like living in the Southwest Caribbean.
Yeah.
It's a very nice warm island.
I think you're rubbing it in a bit there, but I don't blame you one little bit. So, what other fixtures have you got on at this moment, and where are you next?
Well, actually, this weekend there's an event in Needham Market in Suffolk.
Which I'm going to too.
You're going as well.
I'm lecturing the things as well.
Yeah. That's on Saturday the 13th. Then on the Sunday there's another event in Norwich at St Andrew's Hall.
Right.
That's on the Sunday. And then actually the organisers of those events have actually already started talking to me about other events which are coming up over the next few weeks. Of course, most of these are within the East Anglia, Norfolk, Suffolk, Cambridgeshire area. I don't have a problem travelling further afield if somebody wants me to come and be a guest speaker excuse me, at any event that they have. Scotland would be a long way to go, but
I do understand that.
So that's what I have coming up for this weekend, but they have already said, oh, we've got some other events coming up over the next few weeks, would you be interested?
Yeah.
And of course I said, well, yes, I'm here to
Well, we'll
get back in
talk
touch with
about that
family and
later on,
friends.
because maybe that we could sort something out for another time when you come over. So you're booked, and maybe I'm booked doing the same, and we could help each other along the way at certain events, rather than do the events together, whatever it is, and networking with the people that are involved around me.
It's always good to share information, because
maybe we could do that.
we can always learn something.
I'm only sad that I didn't actually get to know you when you first came over here, rather than I've been here a month or so, or whatever it is.
I've been here for about 4 weeks.
Yeah, well, if I'd known you beforehand, maybe we could have. But anyway, that's the way things go.
Everything happens for a reason. But we are here.
Yeah, that's
we
right.
are here. And it's been lovely to meet you. So.
And you, my friend, if there's anything else that you would like to comment on, or anything that I haven't touched on, or anything that you haven't said anything about, do say so.
Oh, I could talk for hours.
I know that. And with great respect, the time is getting on.
I was just going to ask you, how is the actual time? Have we been running for like 30 minutes, or?
We started at 1:15, and it's now 3 minutes to 12.
Okay.
So we'll have to wrap it up now, but before we do, let me just say, Leon, that it has been a pleasure, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I know that we will meet again, not just on Us Feel a Song coming on, but I know that we're meeting on 13th anyway, but we will meet again after that as well.
Our meeting was no accident.
No.
No accident at all.
You heard me talk about my centre.
Yes.
And things I do, and the workshops I do, and I do the Hopi medicine wheels, and I do the lecture on Egyptology, and I go right back to other descriptions of faiths and understandings from the Druids right the way but up through to the Knights of Templars, to the Tudors, the Stuarts and all that.
Yeah.
But having said that, I do think that we might be able to work quite well together.
I'm sure.
Doing certain things. But in the meantime, I thank you again, Liam, for being my guest today, and do come back and see us again.
I would love to.
And we will keep in contact.
Yeah. And thank you everybody for listening in and watching. I'm sure that you'll be posting some information about my website.
Yeah, it'll all be all that will be on there.
Yeah.
This will come out after Nessa's the manager's edited it.
Oh, we have to take out all the bloopers and all the bad language.
It will be more to do with that we've had technical problems, so it's a case like. But whatever, and I'm not that technical minded, but as soon as it is posted, I will post it onto my page, and it will go straight onto your page then.
Okay. Oh, I also forgot to mention, the book also, part 3 of the book, tells you how to come up with a nice balanced name for your baby. So if you know anyone that's expecting and they're looking into names, like I said, sometimes one letter, the way you spell a name, can make a big difference. I never go against the mother's wishes. If she says, this is the name that I want, I keep with that. If we can do a spelling modification, if it works, I do. We very often focus on creating a middle name that then balances with the family names. I love my work. I love my work.
Well, there we go. It's a pleasure, and I will see you later on.
Okay.
Thank you, listeners, and we'll catch up with you again when we see you on the next episode. Thank you.